Well, we are, of course, all watching the Fed today, and our first guest this morning is a well-known advisor to the Fed and also a member of the shadow Fed. He is Mickey Levy, the Bank of America chief economist. Mickey joins us now. Great to have you back here.
Pleasure to be here.
In person. Now, right before we were outlining sort of, all the machinations going around today's meeting and what all this means, the politics, and what does all this mean here with talking about Operation Twist in the Fed? What's this all about?
Okay, the Congress, through the act of the Full Employment Act of 1978, gave the Fed a dual mandate: keep inflation low, keep the unemployment rate low. The Fed is independent to carry out and achieve that mandate. Now, the problem you run into is the Fed can control inflation, but it cannot create jobs. It cannot by itself keep the unemployment rate low. So my perspective is the economy is weak, demand is weak, but
Operation Twist is not going to do anything about it.
That's right. The factors that are keeping the economy weak are way beyond the control of the Fed. And all this, everybody expects the Fed to be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat. Operation Twist, ease, quantitative easing. It's not going to work. What we need to do is identify the factors that are inhibiting the economy, and then identify the proper tools, the proper policy tools to address those issues.
But the question is, Mickey, is that, is an American public going to allow, or is Congress going to allow, and the market's going to allow a Fed to just stand by and do nothing?
Well, great point, and clearly Congress, financial markets, the media, the public always expect the Fed to do something. So they do feel the pressure to do something, and they may do something today. But when we think about Operation Twist, the whole objective of it would be to lower bond yields. But bond yields are already ridiculously low. We have negative real rates. Yet it's not stimulating the housing market. It's not, of course, stimulating jobs. So the Fed may do something, but don't expect instantaneous gratification on the economy.
But Mickey, what's the downside? What's the downside to the Fed doing something? Is there really any?
To an Operation Twist, all it does is elongate the eventual exit, because they'll be saddled with more long-dated securities in their portfolio. Continuing to pump in money, it's not costless. It's not going to generate higher inflation right away. Eventually it could, puts downward pressure on the dollar, which helps U.S. exporters, but reduces the real purchasing power of households and involves a lower standard of living. It's not costless to pump all this money in.
No, and a lot of questions about, expanding the balance sheet, of the Fed. Mickey, I just want to talk a moment about housing, because this is all part of the story, right? How do we get the economy going? And, do we, as you say, rates are already quite low. There's a statistic out that's going to come out today from macro markets. It says that housing prices are going to drop 2.5% this year, and they're only going to rise about 1.1% annually until 2015. So what we're faced with is essentially a lost decade in home prices for Americans. The Fed can't do anything more about that, right, at this point. I mean, as you say, rates are already at record lows.
I largely agree with you. The recent renewed decline in housing prices, there's still an imbalance between supply and demand. We still have an excess of inventories of unsold homes and shadow inventories, all the pending foreclosures and the like. These issues we desperately need to address. The Obama administration is very aware of the issue, yet there's no plan on the table to directly address this very difficult issue, the gray cloud hanging over housing and the consumer. But once again, the Fed's already done its part. It can't do any more to directly address that issue.
What do you make of the dissent on the Fed?
Well, in one sense, it's positive, because it shows the strength of the Fed as a policy-making body, that you have flexibility for different people on the committee to express their opinions and disagree. So there is a difficult situation, because some dissenters are very concerned that the Fed is going beyond its limitations, has pumped in too much money is promising the public too much. And I think those dissents are valid, but the Fed is in a very difficult situation. In part, it's created this difficult situation because people expect too much out of monetary policy.
And Mickey, Golub, is no stranger to to being very critical of Obama. But does he have a point here in that when he says basically that the entire economic team around the president is essentially clueless?
I disagree with that. I don't agree with all the strategies, certainly, that the Obama team is taking to try to reduce the unemployment rate. But they're not clueless. They understand the issues. Now, this particular issue of muni bonds, it's a way for the federal government to subsidize municipalities when they issue bonds.
Allows the muni issuers to pay lower interest rates, right?
That's
what he's
right.
saying, if you take the tax benefit away, then they're going to have to pay higher interest rates.
I think the way to go about it is there a more efficient way for the federal government to subsidize the municipalities without also at the same time subsidizing high-income people who buy the bonds? And there probably is a more efficient way, but I think the thrust of what the Obama administration is trying to do is take away some of the subsidies that go to higher income people to raise tax receipts. I would love to see real honest tax reform. And what we're doing now is approaching tax policy by dribs and drabs, and it's not a cohesive
But
package.
real tax reform, Mickey, is going to eventually create jobs?
Oh, definitely. Because when we talk about real tax reform, we are talking about taking away a lot of the distortions that affect business hiring to create a more certain and level playing field that is more conducive to businesses making longer term decisions. And that's what tax reform is all about. It's not about tinkering with one exclusion or exemption or deduction loophole. It's taking a broad view and saying, how can we raise the tax receipts we need while being fair and reducing a lot of the loopholes and broadening the base.
But quickly, Mickey, it sounds like the bottom line here is that you think that the job mandate really should not be with the Fed. It should be with another institution, right, or another either it's Congress or White House or whoever.
Right now, I would say the high unemployment rate has everything to do. It has to do with non-monetary policies, and the Fed cannot do anything about it at this point. Okay. And I don't see the Obama administration's job package. I see it having some partial successes in it, temporary successes, so I would not absolutely pan it, but it really doesn't get to the creation of permanent long-run jobs.
Mickey, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Mickey Levy, the Bank of America chief economist.